In many rural regions, there exists a deep and sincere love for the Holy Quran, a love so profound that it shapes the lives of ordinary people. This story unfolds in one such village where a remarkable incident took place. An incident so unusual that it left every villager shaken and overwhelmed. It began when a poor and quiet man named Salman passed away. He lived alone, with no family by his side, no one to care for him, and no one to take responsibility after his death. In such villages, when a person dies alone and helpless, the community steps forward to honor the rights of the deceased. The villagers carried out every duty with respect, arranging the funeral, washing the body, and preparing for the burial. The announcement of his funeral prayer echoed across the area, and soon after, people from the village and nearby places gathered at the graveyard. The funeral prayer was performed with dignity, and afterward preparations for his burial began. As the villagers started digging a new grave for Salman, something unexpected occurred. The grave was being dug right next to an old, fragile grave that had clearly been there for many years. The soil around the old grave was weak, and as the digging continued, the weakened portion collapsed into itself. To their astonishment, the villagers noticed something extraordinary beneath the fallen soil. A strange and pleasant fragrance rose into the air, one that none of them had ever experienced before. Even before understanding what was happening, several villagers found themselves staring in disbelief. As the soil settled, they could clearly see inside the old grave, and what they saw left them speechless. Inside the centuries-old grave, fresh rose flowers were blooming, untouched by time, soil, or decay. No one had ever imagined flowers blooming inside a grave, especially one that had been buried for so long. Their surprise quickly turned into curiosity. People whispered among themselves, wondering whether they should open the grave completely to understand the truth behind this mysterious sight. Unable to contain their curiosity, the people decided to uncover the rest of the grave to see what it held. None of them were prepared for what they were about to witness, and the strange fragrance that continued to rise from the grave only deepened their sense of wonder and confusion. As the villagers removed more soil from the old grave, the fragrance grew stronger, so strong that several people felt a light dizziness, as if the air around them had become scented with an otherworldly sweetness. When the grave was finally opened enough to see inside clearly, everyone gasped. These were not ordinary flowers. They were fresh, vibrant, and glowing with color, just as if they had been picked that very morning. The grave was ancient, its outer structure crumbling, yet everything inside was untouched, preserved, and astonishingly beautiful. But the most breathtaking discovery was yet to come. Inside the grave lay a human body, perfectly intact. The shroud covering the body looked clean and pure, as if it had never touched soil or time. There was no sign of decay, no smell of death, no deterioration of garments or flesh. Instead, the entire grave radiated an indescribable peace. The villagers stood around silently, struggling to understand how such a miracle could exist. Many had seen old graves collapse before, but never had they witnessed a body preserved in this manner, or flowers blooming within a sealed grave. Questions filled the air. Who was this person? What righteous act had he performed that earned him such honor after death? How could a grave untouched for years remain filled with fragrance and blossoms? The villagers closed the grave with deep respect, realizing that they had encountered something sacred. But their curiosity was now burning stronger than ever. They wanted to know more about the person resting in that grave. Who was he? What was the secret behind his extraordinary state? With this determination, the villagers divided themselves into groups and began searching the surrounding villages for anyone who might know the identity of the deceased. Days passed as they traveled from house to house seeking clues. Finally, after persistent effort, they reached an old, decaying house. It appeared abandoned, its walls crumbling, paint fading, and doors nearly falling apart. But when they knocked, a weak and trembling voice from inside invited them to enter. They quietly stepped in, unsure of what they would find, unaware that they were standing at the doorway to the truth behind the mysterious grave. Inside the house, the villagers saw a fragile, elderly woman sitting on the floor, leaning against a worn-out wall. Her body was thin and weak, her hands trembling and her breathing faint. It appeared she lived alone, surrounded by nothing but silence and old memories. She struggled even to lift her head, so the villagers approached gently and greeted her with respect. They explained why they had come, that a grave in the nearby cemetery had revealed something miraculous and unusual. They described the flowers, the extraordinary fragrance, and the perfectly preserved body. Upon hearing this, the old woman's eyes widened. Her silence filled the room. After a long, heavy moment, tears welled in her eyes. Then, in a trembling voice, she whispered, "That grave is my son's." The villagers stood in stunned silence. She continued speaking slowly, as though pulling memories from the depths of her heart. "He died when he was young, and left me alone in this world." With great effort, the villagers asked her what righteous deeds her son had performed that could explain the miracle they had witnessed. Perhaps he had been a great scholar, a generous donor, a person who prayed all night, a guardian of the poor? The old woman shook her head. "My memory is weak now," she said softly, "but I remember one thing clearly. It was a habit of his, something he did every single day, something that came from deep love, not knowledge." She explained that every morning when her son returned from the mosque after Fajr prayer, she would find him crying silently. The reason? He did not know how to read the Quran. Seeing others recite it broke his heart. He would hold the Quran with both hands, kiss it gently with deep respect, and press it against his chest. Tears would fall on its pages as he ran his fingers lovingly over the Arabic letters he could not read. He would whisper, "Everything written in this book is true. I believe every word." Then he would kiss the Quran again, place it back with care, and sit silently for a long time. This was his daily ritual, a ritual born purely from love for the Quran, even though he could not read it. The villagers sat quietly as the old mother continued to speak, her voice unsteady yet filled with emotion. She explained that her son's yearning to read the Quran was not a casual feeling. It was a deep, painful longing. Every day he would return from the mosque with tears streaming down his face, feeling as though he had been deprived of something precious. He would hold the Holy Quran as one holds the most treasured jewel in life, with reverence and humility. She described how he would open the Quran, tracing the lines with his fingertips, not understanding the words but feeling their holiness. He would say, "This book is the truth, and the one who revealed it is the ultimate truth." He would sit for long moments, lost in emotion, his heart overflowing with reverence. His tears would fall onto the pages, leaving delicate marks upon them. Every night he would carefully return the Quran to its place, kissing it one last time and whispering prayers he did not fully know how to recite. This, the mother believed, was the source of the miracle that occurred in his grave. She said, "It is possible that God accepted his sincere love for his book, even though he could not read it." Her words filled the villagers with awe. They realized that love, sincerity, and respect can surpass even knowledge, that the heart's devotion can carry weight beyond words. The villagers left the house in silence, their hearts stirred. They had come searching for answers, but they were leaving with a powerful lesson, one they would remember for the rest of their lives. As they walked back through the village paths, the fragrance from the grave seemed to linger in their memory, reminding them that God does not forget any act done for his sake, no matter how small. The story spread throughout the surrounding villages. People spoke in hushed voices about the young man who had never learned to read the Quran, but had loved it more than many who claimed to understand it. And with that love, God honored him in a way that defied nature. Soon, the villagers returned to the cemetery and covered the grave once again with fresh soil, praying for the deceased and reflecting on the immense power of sincerity. They realized that true connection with the divine lies not in perfection, but in pure, heartfelt devotion. As time passed, the villagers often returned to the graveyard, standing quietly beside the old grave that had revealed such an extraordinary secret. It became a place of reflection, a reminder of the power of love, sincerity, and faith. People would bring their children there and tell them about the young man who could not read the Quran, but held it with more respect and passion than many who could recite it fluently. They emphasized that God does not measure worship by eloquence or scholarly knowledge alone. He measures the purity of the heart. This story spread through surrounding villages like a gentle whisper of wonder. People were moved not just by the miracle itself, but by the underlying message, that even the simplest, smallest acts done with honesty can reach unimaginable heights. The preserved body, the untouched shroud, the blooming roses, and the fragrant air all stood as testimony to a life lived with sincerity and a heart filled with reverence. Villagers often discussed how the man had never boasted, never sought praise, never claimed any greatness. His quiet routine, returning home after prayer, holding the Quran, crying over his inability to read it, became a symbol of humility. His mother's frail voice echoed in their minds. He loved the Quran more deeply than many who read it. It became clear to them that this was no ordinary love. It was pure devotion that reached beyond human understanding. With time, the story strengthened the villagers' own connection to the Quran. Some who rarely read it began to open its pages again. Others who had neglected it for years found themselves drawn back with a renewed sense of respect. Even children began to treat the Quran with gentler hands, remembering the young man who cherished it with tears. In the end, the entire village learned a profound lesson. God values sincerity above all. Even if a person cannot read a single word, the sincerity of their love can raise them to honor in ways unseen. The villagers prayed for the young man every time they passed his resting place, asking God to raise his rank and grant him peace. And long after the incident, the story continued to inspire hearts, reminding everyone that true devotion is not measured by ability but by the depth of the heart's connection with the divine.